And here we go. All right, everybody, stocks by the numbers, welcome back. And we had yet another explosive day on one of our biggest winners here on this channel. Again, originally looking at it, sub $2. We did updates when it broke up to $3. We came back to it at $1.60. It was like right around here or something when we started looking at it. It's 2 and change, up to 5, down to 160. Boom, boom, we're bouncing around. Nvidia news, we keep signing people. Church's Chicken comes in. Boom, we explode. Now, I want to talk about just very briefly people who took profits before this massive explosion, okay? First of all, we know this is all hindsight, okay? So even if you took profits over here when we hit this top line resistance, you know, 8 1/3, $9 a share, then it pulled back, you thought you made the right move, then it pops up, so you're obviously, you know, doing the Monday morning quarterback. Holy crap, I knew it was a winner, what am I doing? Listen, I need to remind everyone, first of all, we have a very interesting situation here with SoundHound because, again, we saw value here. Wall Street didn't. Then we got the Nvidia news. Wall Street saw more value. Some individual investors looked at it, put it on their radar, but again, we had the gap up, so that's why even here, when we were in this tightening symmetrical triangle at between like 4 and 5 and change, people were saying, oh, I'm waiting for a pullback, you know, I'm waiting for the sell-off, I'll buy it back down on the dip. And then you can see we broke up and out of the symmetrical triangle, and then we had this blue support trend line drawn out in, you know, the last couple of videos, and you can see that we came down and tested it, and then obviously it ran into some resistance, top line resistance, came down to the fib, didn't quite test the support trend line, and then ended up breaking up and out even more. So you know, long story short, again, I mean, you know, there's like 9 ideas I just tried to say in that one statement. But first of all, the markets are raging, okay? And I still say major indices are up roughly 50% over about the last 3.5, 4 years. Which, if you talk to anyone, I know there's a lot of you, you know, younger, newer traders out there, so you don't appreciate maybe this old school mentality. Also, at the same time, you generally don't have much market experience, right? A lot of people started investing when they were locked down. People got into it, right? A lot of younger people got some stimulus money. Boom, they started, you know, buying shares of Nvidia and Tesla, you know, companies that they knew. So, again, I'm not knocking what you're doing, but remember, this may be technically the only market that you know. And if you ask people down in the comments section, if you talk to some wealthier, older individual investors, gentlemen in their or ladies, excuse me, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, they'll tell you that, yeah, this is kind of unseen. This is kind of unheard of. Markets used to take years, if not decades, to climb that much in value. And we saw it just over the last couple of years. And now people are saying Trump's going to come in, as we said, and it's going to be, you know, great for America, and markets are going to keep going. He whatever, rang the opening bell the other day. And listen, I can absolutely support that argument. So if you're still looking for, you know, long-term American economic growth, and you're invested into like the index ETFs like SPY or QQQ, you know, and you're holding those for the next couple of years, you know, I can understand that. It'd be very difficult for me to argue against that point. But also at the same time, as I said, if we do re-strengthen our economy here domestically in the States, that may lead to a stronger US dollar, that may actually pump up our yields here on the 10 and 20 year, and technically that equation should lead to, even if it's not a massively dropping stock market, it should lead to potentially just a stable, consolidated stock market. So we may see something where, you know, we might stay up here, and then once Trump gets sworn in, 3rd week of January, and these policies start to be implemented, and then the numbers start to flow out 1, 2, 3 quarters later. That's why I'm saying we may overall just kind of go into maybe like this downward consolidation mode for, who knows, 6 months, 8 months, a year and a half. We might just calm down and coast along. And then we may see even further growth than what we're seeing here. And I only bring that to you because if this was almost any other market, under any other administration, under any other circumstances, we would not have been on the up and up as consistent as we've been. Meaning that something like SoundHound, in a quote unquote more realistic market, probably would have potentially had this flash break up here up to the fib 884, and then how it immediately pulled back, it probably would have come back down. You understand? But we're in this market now where we have a lot of buying coming in, both institutions and individuals, and we're continuing to pump all of these, especially smaller cap stocks, because nobody wants to be left out. So everyone's buying, and it doesn't matter regardless of price. And obviously, in the short term, even people who piled in here on SOUN at 12, 14 a share, obviously they're up. I mean, stock again closed 1691. It's up over 3 points, almost 24%. Technically, this is new highs now after hours, right? We hit 1729 today. Stock right now 1731 after hours, up another 2.4%. But first of all, over the longer term, we knew this would happen, right? But again, you're seeing the breakout just on anything trending. But the reason why they're continuing to climb and they're holding their value goes back to, in my opinion, this fake over-pumped market. Because if this was a real market, again, even if SOUN broke up to 10, it would have pulled back into the 7s or the 6s after the sell-off. Because that's usually always what happens. And even if you compare it, look at something like an ASTS, right? A lot of people jumped in right before that earnings report or whatever. I think it was like back in May, right? The stock was like $2.50. Then they got a couple of pieces of good news. Next thing you know, the stock's at like $22. So any normal person, for the most part, probably would have taken the money and run because you just 10x'd your principal position, right? I mean, let's call it like it is. The number one priority and the goal here is to secure profits and grow our accounts. It's not just to have these war stories like, oh yeah, I bought that stock at 2, it went to 40, now it's back at 2, I should have sold, but it was a great call. Like that, all of that means nothing, right? It's all about securing profits, growing your account, growing your buying power. So think about that situation as well. How many bought at 2, sold at 20, then all of a sudden the stock's at like 38, right? So as we say, you're never going to time the absolute bottom, you're never going to time the absolute top. But even something like SoundHound, if it was up huge for you and you got in at 2.5, 3, next thing you know, the stock's at 9, again, it technically was the prudent thing to do, right? You were up huge. It could have been viewed as a little overvalued. It just had a massive run. It was at the fib. It got near this top line resistance. You're expecting a rejection and a pullback. So it's time now for you to possibly take the money and run. So it's understandable. I can appreciate that. Of course, as people always try to say, oh, even on the option side, oh, you should leave a couple of runners, right? If you have 5 calls, you can like sell 3 or 4, leave 1 or 2 runners just in case it keeps going. But again, as we know, it's all hindsight. So if you sold 80% of your shares here and this didn't happen and then it pulled back here, right? Then you would have been saying the opposite story. You would have said, oh, I had a feeling it was overpumped and it was going to pull back, so I'm glad I secured my profits where I could, and maybe I'll look to re-enter and add to the remaining 20% down the line, right? So that's why I'm saying, again, I know I just went off on a big tangent, but at the end of the day, the point is, I just want you to stay focused, stay disciplined. Don't look at something like this like you made a bad call, because again, this is hindsight, and don't get into that habit now of doing revenge trading or revenge investing. That's basically my point. But technically, we had no news today on SOUN. So on the technical side, we had the spike up and we slightly channeled down. So you could make the argument that we bull flagged and then we popped up and went even higher. Originally, we were looking for the squeeze up to about $15, $16 a share. Now you can see apparently we keep going and we're above 17. So if we back up to when the company came out, we can see right here that the high was $18.14. So we may have a situation where we're just forcing it straight up to, long-term potentially double top at 1814 and then drop back down and retest our support trend line. If it does immediately come back down to the support trend line here, let's say over the next week or so, I mean, you could be looking at the high eights, maybe about 9.5, potentially even $10 if we come back right here before this next big pump, right? We'd kind of meet up right there. Maybe you'd be looking at like 10, 20, 10 and a quarter. So in my opinion, I do still like it over the long term. Is it a buy here at 17? I mean, it's hard to call. Again, in the short term, it could continue to squeeze and go up to 20, so you might look like you made the right call. At the same time, if it pulls back to like 11, 12, and then starts to bounce again, that would make sense as well. So here in the moment, it'd be hard to call, but I said, in my opinion, long term, $20, $25 really shouldn't be an issue. But again, we're in the tech, Reddit, stock Twitter age, so once the kids get it trending, that just like I said, all the way back here, you're going to start hearing good news. The stock's going to start moving. People are going to talk about it. And then as it starts to break up and out, everyone and their brother's going to start doing a video on it. Then it's going to get trending online. Then you got the uneducated FOMO retail investor money piling in at the highs. That's going to help pump it up even more. I literally said this was going to happen 12, 18 months ago. And now you're obviously seeing it happen. So, good call by me, of course. But I also made the argument as well when we were looking here in this long-term symmetrical triangle, and the stock had like a $2 billion market cap and change. And then again, I compared it to something like ASTS that just finally did their job. I don't care who beats me up in the comments for that. We have to call it like it is. They delayed their timeline. They finally did their job and manufactured and delivered those satellites. Then they launched them. And now you have to wait for revenue. But on that news, we brought the market cap up to almost $8 billion. And that's why, looking at something like SoundHound, that's actually signing brand name franchises, expanding the footprint, expanding the business, they had a market cap of, $2 billion and change. So I made that argument as well. The fact that SoundHound, we can easily bring this stock up to $5, $6, $7 billion market cap, and that could not be viewed as overvalued. And that's kind of what we're seeing here with a $6.25 billion market cap, technically more now after hours. But again, if you were in this one and you took profits at, 880, again, 10, 11 and a half, listen, don't beat yourself up. Because again, that's technically the priority. So you did your job, you made money, you live to fight another day. And again, we kind of knew how this one was going to turn out. So yeah, there's my piece of crap keyboard. But I'd say, in my opinion, in my eyes, I know it's a winner. I mean, that's just me. It's just my opinion. It's not financial advice. But now you know what is potentially capable. So you can keep this on your watch list if you'd like, and potentially, try to add as it cools off and sells down. But let's switch over here. We can see, I mean, according to FinViz, it's saying the short float is still above 25%. Again, I think that's updated, like weekly or something? I'm not sure. But I would assume some of that got covered recently. But this is why we can keep going. And if we do happen to retest this high of 1814 and then get above it, a lot of people might just be calling for that psychological $20 level. And then we'll maybe start to cool it down. But also, again, we know that, I know Trump appointed, who was it? The executive from PayPal, I think we looked at last time. He's like the AI tech crypto czar or whatever. People were pumped about that. We're hearing news that, that they like AI and they're going to protect the AI sector, the quantum computing sector. But again, we spoke about this even before Election Day. We were talking about the reinvestment into domestic industries, technology, across the board. And that's why I think people just started piling to all of these companies, every tech stock, any company that makes sense, or batteries, AI, anything. And that's what's just kind of forcing this break up and out. So I think 2025, 2026 are going to be even better years for SOUN. And I would say if you miss this one, or again, if you happen to get out early, maybe give it a little bit of time. Hopefully it can cool off and sell off for you, and you can reposition yourself and, ride it down the road, take that next leg higher. Excuse me. People always tell me it's about the technicals, but never when it's a stock they own breaking up and out, right? RSI has been over 70 for weeks. It doesn't matter. Daily RSI here sitting above 80. Top Bollinger Band 1702. Stock closed just below it, but again is now technically back above it. So that's why I'm saying we might just continue up and up to that all-time high 1814 level. MACD flying off the screen. And look at our 50-day moving average as well. Just look at how flat it was. The tightening as we approach the apex of that symmetrical triangle we spoke about. 50-day moving average sitting at about $5. This is mid-October. Now we're mid-December, right? Just a mere 60 days later, and our 50-day moving average is up to almost 7.5. That is roughly a 50% climb in 50-day moving average over the last 2 months. So now that's why I'm saying if we pull back, look, 10, that might be, 1020, 1040, which may be right around that support trend line. And then, we sell off and then we bounce, right? So that's why, again, if you miss this one, just give it a minute. Just give it a minute. RSI on the weekly up to 85.5. Traders tell me it's about RSI. I'm sorry to keep rubbing that in, but that's why it always makes me laugh, because people don't also understand that it's situational, right? It's situational. And unfortunately, it seems like now we're in a market where there's a lot of exceptions to the rule, especially if they're tech companies. But again, we have to be realistic because as much as something like this might hurt, I just want to remind you of all of those EV stocks that went public back in 2020, 2021 during the lockdowns. I want to remind you of all the battery stocks, fuel cell, QuantumScape. Think about how much those stocks exploded and people saw how much they could have made, and then look at how much they sold off over the next 1, 2, 3 years, right? So SoundHound, I think, won't go into a 3-year sell-off, but you understand my point. You have these big run-ups, and then you kind of have like these slow sell-offs. So that's why I'm saying, in my opinion, just remain patient. RSI 85.5 again on the weekly. Top Bollinger Band about 13.1/3. So that's why, technically they can keep squeezing it up, but it really should drop back to the low teens, if not sub-low teens, like 12, 11 and change, in my opinion. MACD on the weekly flying off the charts again. Let's check the pivot points real quick. Yeah, see, we're above even last year's top level resistance here. That's why we may just retest that 18 now. On the daily, we're really technically in uncharted waters, really. We have top line resistance here for this month at 12.5. We didn't even come down and retest that on this potential bull flag. And we can see back here, we're looking at like 13, maybe 13.5. We are really breaking up and out. And again, as I said, if you sold, I know it really sucks. Sometimes knowing that we had a good call and seeing extra profits we didn't make, sometimes that hurts more than actually taking a loss, right? We know that. But as we said, if you started to see this run up and you locked in and secured profits, just remember, I know it hurts a little bit and I know you may be beating yourself up, but you technically did the correct, prudent thing. So, now that we know it's a winner and now, the kids love it and the Johnny-come-latelys are coming in. Every day I have some schmuck with some crappy cookie cutter thumbnail come up on my screen like, oh, I'm talking about SMCI. I'm talking about SoundHound. You're Johnny-come-lately, bro. That's what I mean. We knew this already. We knew this already. And I literally said all the way back here, verbatim, that this is exactly what would happen. And every time someone asks, what's going on with SoundHound? What should I be doing? Should I cut SoundHound? Is it done? Is this good news or bad news? What did I keep saying? In my opinion, I would view this as an opportunity, and I would continue to accumulate shares and build a position. And again, if I started this channel years earlier and I had revenue coming in back here at mid tail end of 2023, just know that I absolutely would have owned thousands, tens of thousands of shares of SOUN, and my cost basis would have been 2. And today the stock is at 17. So again, look, think about how adamant I was and how confident I was in this situation, doing updates every single month. And the entire time, still to this day, I do not own one share of SOUN. And that's why, again, I'm not trying to be cocky, but not only was it a good call, but again, I still say the best thing that I bring to the table is the fact that right now I am technically cash poor. So I gave you great analysis and made a great call on a situation that I couldn't even buy myself. So, when people try to question me or come at me if I make a wrong call, just remember something. I'm doing all of this mostly for you. This is not for me. If I had money, I know what to buy. I'd be up 800%. Right? So that's why I told you, I made this channel for you, not for me. I know what to buy already. But again, technically no news. And on the breakup, 6.25. I mean, who knows? We could take this to 7.25, 7.5 billion. That's what I mean. We might go up to that 20 psychological level. But I said my piece, and we don't have to keep going because we had some news come out on SMCI. So I'm about to do a quick update video on that as well. But that's it. I'll end it there. So once again, this is Stocks by the Numbers. I want to thank you for stopping by. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please drop it down in the comments section. I'm usually very quick to reply. Thumbs up algorithm helps me get more eyes on the channel. And of course, subscribe to the channel. That is our handshake agreement. That is how you help me help you. But more importantly, moving forward, like I always say, I understand that markets are rocky, they are volatile, and they are very uncertain. So I want to wish all of you success. I hope everyone makes a couple of dollars. Thank you for your time. Have a good weekend.